Hey, my fourth grade friends, it's Mrs. Real here with some more chapters of Hoot so that we can get to the end together on Thursday when I come to see you. So while I'm reading, I don't have my document camera and it's a chapter book. You don't need to see the pages anyway. There's no pictures in here. But I do happen to be sitting next to the box that has all the baby chickens in it, the 4 that hatched out for us this year. So I'm going to turn my other camera on and see if I can't get them to come out and you can see them and watch them. Usually they come out when I start talking. So as I read, they might just come out because they hear my voice. And so you can watch whatever might be happening in the box while I read to you from Hoot. I'm going to get about 2 chapters from the end on this video to get you guys caught up and all together, and us being able to finish by the end of this week. But I want to do the end with you together. All right, so the yellow part you can see there, they need to have their cage changed, but in the meantime, the yellow part you can see is the warmer. It's like a heating pad underneath that, so they're hiding under there right now. They group together and they stay warm because as they're still babies, they need to stay warm in there. Hey, baby chickens, come here. Come on out, babies. Come see what's going on. There they go. Come on over here and get some food. Oh, there they are. There's that yellow one, a slightly darker one. There's a brown one, and those are the 3 bantam or smaller sized chickens. And then that big, large one that just came out. The black one is our only full-sized chicken egg baby chicken. Oh, no, I'm not scaring you. I'm giving you some more food. All right, so we'll see if they'll still come out and be brave, or if they need to go back under and stay warm while I read to you from Hoot. So last we left, Curly realized he'd left his gun at the construction site when he had that scuffle with Dana Matheson. And so he went back and realized that all of the seats are missing from the construction equipment. And he found his gun at the bottom of the porta potty. Roy was aching to sneak over to the junkyard and visit Mullet Fingers. He wanted to find out what had happened last night at the Mother Paula's property. The problem was Roy's mother. She invoked the Sunday rule as soon as he returned from the skateboard park, and a family outing was launched. Making good on his promise, Roy's father took them out to Tamini Trail to an Indian tourist shop that offered airboat trips through the Everglades. Roy ended up having a good time, even though the noise was so loud that it hurt his eardrums. The tall Seminole who was driving the airboat wore a straw cowboy hat. He said the engine was the same type used as on small airplanes. The rush of wind made Roy's eyes water as the flat-bottomed boat whisked across the sawgrass flats and weaved through the narrow, winding creeks. It was cooler than a roller coaster. Along the way, they stopped to look at snakes, bullfrogs, chameleons, raccoons, possums, turtles, ducks, herons, 2 bald eagles, an otter, and by Roy's count, 19 alligators. His father got most of the action on video, while his mother took pictures with her new digital camera. I'm going to move the angle of the camera a little bit because they're all over there eating. Although the airboat was very fast, the ride across the shallows was like gliding on silk. Again, Roy was astounded by the immense flatness of the terrain, the lush horizons, and the exotic abundance of life. Once you got away from all the jillions of people, Florida was just as wild as Montana. That night, lying in bed, Roy felt a stronger connection to Mullet Fingers and a better understanding of the boys' private crusade against the pancake house. It wasn't just about the owls, it was about everything. All the birds and animals, all the wild places that were in danger of being wiped out. No wonder the kid was mad, Roy thought, and no wonder he was so determined. When Roy's parents came in to say goodnight, he told them he'd never forget their trip to the Everglades, which was the truth. His mom and dad were still his best friends, and they could be fun to hang out with. Roy knew it wasn't easy on them either, packing up and moving all the time. The Eberharts were a team, and they stuck together. While we were gone, Officer Delinko left a message on the answering machine, Roy's father said. Last night, they arrested a suspect in the vandalism of the construction site. Roy didn't say a word. Don't worry, Mr. Eberhart said. It wasn't the young man you told me about, the one who ran away from the hospital. It was the Matherson boy, Mrs. Eberhardt cut in excitedly, the one who attacked you on the bus. And he tried to convince the police he was you. Roy couldn't pretend not to know. Garrett told me all about it, he admitted. Really? Garrett must have an inside source, Roy's father remarked. The best, said Roy. What else did the policeman's message say? That's about it. I got the impression he wanted me to ask if you knew anything about what happened. Me? Roy said. Oh, that's ridiculous, his mother interjected. How would Roy know what a hoodlum like Dana Matherson was up to? Roy's mouth was as dry as chalk. As close as he felt to his parents, he wasn't prepared to tell them that he'd mooned Dana, purposely lured him toward the Mother Paula's property, and then made up a story about a stash of cigarettes inside the trailer. It's certainly a strange coincidence, Mr. Eberhardt was saying. 2 different kids targeting the same location? Is it possible the Matherson boy hooked up with your friend, Beatrice's stepbrother? No way, Roy interjected firmly. Dana doesn't care about the owls. He doesn't care about anything but himself. Of course he doesn't, Roy's mother said. As his parents were shutting the bedroom door behind them, Roy said, Hey, Dad. Yes? Remember how you said the pancake people could do whatever they wanted on that land if they had all the permits and stuff? That's right. How do I check up on something like that? Roy asked, just to make sure it's all legal. I suppose you'd call the building department at City Hall. The building department. Okay, thanks. After the door closed, Roy heard his parents talking softly in the hallway. He couldn't make out what they were saying, so he pulled the covers up to his neck and rolled over. Right away, he began drifting off. Before long, someone whispered his name. Roy assumed he was already dreaming. Then he heard it again, and this time the voice seemed so real that he sat up. The only sound in the bedroom was his own breathing. Great, he thought. Now I'm imagining things. He lay back on the pillow and blinked up at the ceiling. Roy! He went rigid under the covers. Roy, don't freak out. But that's exactly what he felt like doing. The voice was coming from under his bed. Roy, it's me. Me? Who? Roy's breath came in rapid bursts, and his heart pounded like a bass drum. Sorry, guys, trying to move the camera for you. He could feel the presence of the other person beneath him in the darkness, under the mattress. Me, Beatrice. Chill out, man. What are you doing here? Shh, not so loud. Roy heard her slide out from underneath the bed. Quietly, she stood up and moved to the window. There was just enough moon in the sky to light up her curly blonde hair and cast a reflection in her glasses. How'd you get in our house? Roy struggled to keep his voice low, but he was too rattled. How long have you been hiding here? All afternoon, Beatrice replied, while you guys were gone. You broke in? Relax, cowgirl. I didn't bust any windows or anything. The sliding door on your porch popped right off the track. They all do, Beatrice said matter-of-factly. Roy hopped out from under the sheets, locked the door, and switched on his desk lamp. Are you completely wacko? He snapped at her. Did somebody kick you in the head at soccer practice or what? I'm sorry about this. I really am, Beatrice said. It's just, things got kind of hairy at my house. I don't know where else to go. Oh. Roy was instantly sorry he'd lost his temper. Was it Lana? Beatrice nodded gloomily. I guess she fell off her broom or something. That really bites. Yeah, her and my dad got into a huge fight. I mean, huge. She threw a clock radio at his head, so he beamed her with a mango. Roy had always thought that Beatrice Leap wasn't afraid of anything, but she didn't look so fearless now. He felt bad for her. It was hard to imagine living in a house where the grown-ups behaved so idiotically. You can stay here tonight, he offered. For real? As long as my parents don't find out. Roy, you're pretty cool, Beatrice said. The little yellow ones in the front are drinking water out of the water bowl. I don't think you can see it from that angle. He grinned. Thanks for calling me Roy. Thanks for letting me crash here. You take the bed, he said. I'll sleep on the floor. No way, Jose. Roy didn't argue. He gave Beatrice a pillow and a blanket, and she stretched out happily on the carpet. He turned off the light and said goodnight. Then he remembered something he meant to ask her. Hey, did you see Mullet Fingers today? Maybe. Well, he told me he had something planned for last night. He's always got something planned. Yeah, but this stuff can't go on forever, Roy said. Sooner or later, he's gonna get caught. I believe he's smart enough to know that. Then we've got to do something. Like what? Beatrice said faintly. She was fading towards sleep. You can't stop him, Roy. He's too darn thick-headed. Then I guess we've got to join him. Excuse me? Good night, Beatrice. Chapter 17. Curly stared hard at the phone, as if staring would make it quit ringing. Finally, he braced himself and picked up the receiver. On the other end was Chuck Muckle, of course. Do I hear the sound of bulldozers, Mr. Brannett? No, sir. Why not? It's Monday morning here in beautiful Memphis, Tennessee. Isn't it Monday morning in Florida, too? I've got some good news, Curly said, and I got some bad news. The good news being that you found employment elsewhere? Please, let me finish. Sure, said Chuck Muckle, while you're cleaning out your desk. Curly hastily spilled his version of what had happened Saturday night. The part about the missing bulldozer seats definitely took some shine off the rest of the story. Not wishing to make things worse, Curly didn't mention that his pistol had somehow ended up submerged in a portable toilet. A fuzzy silence lingered at the Memphis end of the conversation. Curly wondered if Mother Paula's vice president for corporate relations had hung up on him. Hello? Curly said. You there? Oh, I'm here, Chuck Muckle replied tartly. Let me get this straight, Mr. Brannett. A young man was arrested for attempted burglary on our property. Right, assault and trespassing too. But then on the very same evening, another person or persons unknown removed the seats from the bulldozers and backhoes and whatevers. Yes, sir. That would be the not so good news, Curly said. Did you report this theft to the police? Of course not. I didn't want it to get in the newspaper. Maybe there's hope for you yet, said Chuck Muckle. He asked Curly if it was possible to operate the machines without driver's seats. Only if you're some kind of octopus. So I'm correct in assuming there'll be no bulldozing today. Or tomorrow, Curly reported grimly. I got new seats on order from the wholesaler in Sarasota, but they won't be here till Wednesday. What a happy coincidence, Chuck Muckle said. That turns out to be the last day that Miss Kimberly Lou Dixon is available to us. Her mutant insect movie begins shooting next weekend in New Mexico. Curly swallowed. You want to do the groundbreaking this Wednesday? What about the site clearing? Change of plans. Blame it on Hollywood, said Chuck Muckle. We'll do the ceremony first, and as soon as everybody leaves, you can crank up the machines, assuming they haven't been stripped down to the axles by then. But it's just Wednesday's the day after tomorrow. No need to soil yourself, Mr. Brannett. We'll arrange all the details from our end, the advertising, the press releases, and so forth. I'll get in touch with the mayor's office and the Chamber of Commerce. Meanwhile, your job is incredibly simple. Not that you won't find a way to screw it up. What's that? All you've got to do is lock down the construction site for the next 48 hours. Think you can handle that? Sure, Curly said. No more alligators, no more poisonous snakes, no more stealing, Chuck Muckle said. No more problems, period. Comprendo? I got a quick question about the owls. What owls? Chuck Muckle shot back. Those burrows are abandoned, remember? Curly thought, I guess somebody forgot to tell the birds. There's no law against destroying abandoned nests, the vice president was saying. Anybody asks? That's your answer. The burrows are deserted. But what if one of them owls shows up? Curly asked. What owls? Chuck Muckle practically shouted. There are no owls on that property, and don't you forget it, Mr. Brannett. 0 owls. Nada. Somebody sees one, you tell them it's I don't know, a robin or a wild chicken or something. A chicken? Curly thought. By the way, said Chuck Muckle, I'll be flying down to Coconut Cove so I can personally accompany the lovely Miss Dixon to our groundbreaking. Let's pray that you and I have nothing more to talk about when I arrive. Don't worry, Curly said, though he was plenty worried himself. Beatrice Leap was gone when Roy awoke. He had no idea how she'd slipped out of the house unnoticed, but he was glad she'd made it. Over breakfast, Roy's father read aloud the brief newspaper account of Dana Matherson's arrest. The headline said, Local Youth Nabbed in Break-In Attempt. Because Dana was under 18, the authorities weren't allowed to release his name to the media, a fact that rankled Roy's mother, who believed Dana's mugshot should have been plastered on the front page. The story identified him only as a student at Trace Middle and said that the police considered him a suspect in several recent vandalisms. It didn't specifically mention Mother Paula's as the target. Dana's arrest was the major buzz around school. Many kids were aware that he'd been picking on Roy, so they were eager to get Roy's reaction to the news that his tormentor had been nailed by the cops. Roy was careful not to gloat or joke about it, or to draw any special attention to himself. If Dana blabbed about the imaginary cigarette stash, he might try to blame Roy for the bungled theft. The police had no reason to believe anything the kid said, but Roy wasn't taking any chances. As soon as the bell rang, ending homeroom, Garrett took him aside to share a weird new detail. "Rat traps," he said, cupping a hand over his mouth. "What are you talking about?" Roy asked. "When they caught him, he had rat traps stuck on his shoes. That's how come he couldn't run away." "I'm so sure." "Seriously, dude, the cops told my mom he stepped on him while he was sneaking around the trailer." Knowing Dana, Roy could actually picture it. "Broke 3 of his toes," Garrett said. "Oh, come on." "Absolutely, we're talking humongous rat traps." Garrett held his hands a foot apart to illustrate. Whatever. Roy knew that Garrett was famous for exaggerating. "Did the police tell your mom anything else?" "Like what?" "Like what Dana was after?" "Smokes is what he said, but the cops don't believe him." "Who would?" said Roy, hoisting his book bag over his shoulder. All morning he looked for Beatrice Leap between classes, but he never saw her in the hallways. At lunch hour, the girls' soccer players were sitting together in the cafeteria, but Beatrice wasn't among them. Roy approached the table and asked if anyone knew where she was. "At the dentist," said one of her teammates, a gangly Cuban girl. "She fell down some steps at home and broke a tooth, but she'll be ready for the game tonight." "Great," said Roy, but he didn't feel so good about what he'd just heard. Beatrice was such a phenomenal athlete that Roy couldn't imagine her falling down the stairs like some ordinary klutz. After seeing what she could do to a bicycle tire, he couldn't picture her breaking a tooth either. Roy was still thinking about Beatrice when he sat down in American history. He found himself struggling to concentrate on Mr. Ryan's quiz, though it really wasn't that difficult. The final question was the same one that Mr. Ryan had asked him in the hallway on Friday. Who won the Battle of Lake Erie? Without hesitation, Roy wrote, "Commander Oliver Perry." It was the only answer he was sure he got right. On the bus ride home, Roy kept a wary eye on Dana Matherson's hulking friends, but they didn't glance once in his direction. Either Dana hadn't got the word out about what Roy had done, or his buddies didn't care all that much. The police captain was reading the arrest report when Officer Delinko and the sergeant came in. The captain motioned for both men to sit down. "Nice work," he told Officer Delinko. "You've made my life a whole lot easier. I just got off the horn with Councilman Grandy, and he's one happy camper." "I'm glad, sir," Officer Delinko said. "What do you make of this Matherson kid? What's he told you?" "Not much." The interrogation of Dana Matherson hadn't gone as smoothly as Officer Delinko had hoped. In the training films, the suspects always caved in and confessed to their crimes. However, Dana had remained stubbornly uncooperative, and his statements were confusing. At first, he said he was snooping around the Mother Paula's property in order to heist a load of Gladiator cigarettes. However, after speaking with a lawyer, the boy changed his story. He claimed he'd actually gone to the trailer to bum a cigarette, but the foreman mistook him for a burglar and came after him with a gun. "Matherson's a hard case," Officer Delinko told the captain. "Yeah," the sergeant said. "He's been around the block a few times." The captain nodded. "I saw his rap sheet, but here's what bothers me. The kid's a thief, not a practical joker. I can't picture him dumping alligators in porta potties. Stealing porta potties, maybe." "I wondered about that too," Officer Delinko said. The Mother Paula's vandal had displayed a dark sense of humor that didn't fit the Matherson boy's dim-witted criminal history. He seemed very likely to strip the wheels from a patrol car than to paint the windshield black or hang his shirt like a pennant from the antenna. "What's his motive for the funny stuff?" the captain wondered aloud. "I asked him if he had a gripe against Mother Paula's pancakes," Officer Delinko said, "and he did say IHOPs were better." "That's it? He likes IHOP pancakes better?" "Except for the buttermilk," Officer Delinko reported. "He had nice things to say about Mother Paula's buttermilks." Gruffly, the sergeant interjected, "The kid's jerking our chain is all." The captain pushed back from his desk. He could feel another crusher of a headache coming on. Okay, I'm making a command decision here, he said. Considering we've got nothing better to work with, I intend to tell Chief Deacon that the Mother Paula's vandal has been apprehended. Case closed. Officer Delinko cleared his throat. Sir, I found a piece of a shirt at the crime scene. A shirt that's way too small to fit the Matherson boy. He didn't mention that the remainder of the shirt had been tied, tauntingly, to the antenna of his squad car. We need more than a rag, the captain grunted. We need a warm body, and the only one we've got is sitting in juvenile detention. So officially, he's our perpetrator. Understand? Officer Delinko and his sergeant agreed in unison. I'm going out on a limb here, so you know what that means, the captain said. If another crime happens on that property, I'll look like a complete bozo. And if I end up looking like a bozo, certain people around here are going to spend the rest of their careers cleaning dimes out of parking meters. Am I making myself clear? Again, Officer Delinko and the sergeant said yes. Excellent, said the captain. So your mission, basically, is to make sure that there's no more surprises between now and the Mother Paula's groundbreaking ceremony on Wednesday. No sweat. The sergeant rose to his feet. Can we tell David the good news? Sooner the better, said the captain. Officer Delinko, you're back on the road, effective immediately. In addition, the sergeant has written a letter commending the outstanding job you did in capturing our suspect. This will become part of your permanent file. Officer Delinko was beaming. Thank you, sir. There's more. Because of your experience on this case, I'm assigning you to a special patrol on Mother Paula's construction site. 12 hours on, 12 hours on, 12 hours on, 12 hours off, beginning tonight at dusk. You up for that? Absolutely, Captain. Then go home and take a nap, the captain advised, because if you doze off out there again, I'll be writing a much shorter letter for your file, a termination letter. Outside the captain's office, Officer Delinko's sergeant gave him a hearty slap on the back. 2 nights and we're home free, David. You psyched? One question, sir. Will I be on duty out there alone? Well, we're hurting on the night shift right now, the sergeant told him. Kirby got stung by a yellow jacket, and Miller's out with a sinus infection. Looks like you'll be riding solo. That's okay, Officer Delinko said, though he would have preferred to have a partner under the circumstances. Curly probably would be staying at the trailer, though. He wasn't the best company. You drink coffee, David? Yes, sir. Good. Drink twice as much as usual, the sergeant said. I don't expect anything to happen, but you'd better be wide awake if it does. On the way home, Officer Delinko stopped at a souvenir shop along the main highway. Then he swung by the juvenile detention center to take one more crack at Dana Matherson. It would be such a relief if the boy admitted to even one of the earlier vandalisms. Dana was brought to the interview room by a uniformed guard who took a position outside the door. The kid was dressed in a rumpled gray jumpsuit with the word inmate stenciled in capital letters across the back. He wore only socks because his toes were still swollen from the rat traps. Officer Delinko offered him a stick of gum, which the kid crammed into his cheeks. So, young man, you've had some time to think. About what? Dana blew a bubble and popped it. You know, your situation. I don't need to think, the boy said. That's how come I got a lawyer. Officer Delinko leaned forward. Forget the lawyers, okay? I'll put in a good word with the judge if you'll just help me clear up some other cases. Are you the one who painted the windows of my patrol car? The boy snorted. Why would I do a dumb thing like that? Come on, Dana. I can make things easier for you. Just tell me the truth. I got a better idea, the boy said. Why don't you just kiss my bum? Officer Delinko folded his arms. See, that's exactly the sort of disrespect for authority that got you here in the first place. No, man, I'll tell you what got me here. That little dork Roy Eberhard is what got me here. Not this again, Officer Delinko said, rising. Obviously, we're wasting our time. Dana Matherson sneered. Duh. He pointed at the small shopping bag that the patrolman had placed on the table. You finally bring me some smokes? No, but I got you something else. Officer Delinko reached into the bag. A little buddy to keep you company, he said, casually dropping it in the boy's lap. Dana Matherson howled and bucked and tried to knock it away, toppling his chair in the panic. He leaped up from the floor and scrambled out the door, where the guard clamped a brawny hand on his arm and led him off. Officer Delinko was left alone to ponder the object laying on the linoleum tile. Toothy, scaly, and lifelike, except for the $3.95 price sticker glued to its snout. It was a rubber alligator, which Officer Delinko had purchased at the tourist shop. Dana Matherson's reaction to the harmless toy convinced the patrolman that he couldn't possibly be the Mother Paula's vandal. Anyone so freaked out by a puny fake wasn't capable of handling a real alligator, especially in the forbidding darkness of the Travelin' Johnny. The true culprit was still out there somewhere, dreaming up a new scheme. Officer Delinko had 2 long, nervous nights ahead of him. All right, friends, I'm going to stop this recording right now, and then I'm going to start a new one for the next chunk of the book. And then I will read to you out loud when I see you on Thursday. See you again soon.